When we start to move into a lot of the spiritual circles, when we start to move more into a bubble of enlightenment, a lot of what is discussed is really the balancing of the self, the purification of the self, the knowingness of the self. So as we really look into these grand teachings, as we further get to understand ourselves, would it be appropriate to say that all that life is about the self? Well, when we're looking at the self, we're looking at a particular perspective. It's like in a movie, when you're watching a film, when you're watching a TV show, whatever, there's the camera, and the camera is picking up different perspectives relating to all the elements that then create this film or TV show. When we're looking at our lives, our perspective is giving us the viewpoint, the vantage point of how we understand life to be. So is life about the self? The answer is both yes and no. It is true that we are holding a perspective through what we understand ourselves to be as a body, as a mind, as a spirit, all contained in one through this perspective representing the idea of a self. And that the self travels throughout reality, this reality, meets other people, indulges in particular events, circumstances, becomes contained within environments, creating feelings and emotional awareness, and that it simply holds an aspect in regards to what we understand reality to be. But is that all there is? Absolutely not. There is far more to the self. Just like the camera that's able to pick up the movie, the film that's playing on the television, we're just taking a look at a perspective of a world through the perspective of a camera. And so when we're looking at ourselves, we're basically this camera. Yet we can interact with this environment. It's not that we are just simply observers. That exists in regards to other realms. But when we're looking at a self, we're being able to look at how we understand this reality through the vantage point of self. So how does one have the ability to transcend past the self? By understanding that there is a connection to everything that's around you. By understanding that the vantage point of what the self is attempting to do by talking to another person or looking at a certain event, they're only able to get self-perspectives based on talking to that person or persons or understanding that event and assigning it particular meaning. This is what the self does. It perceives in every particular form of capacity through the mind. The mind will want us to think, this is a bad situation, this is a good situation. This person feels very, very bad. This person feels very, very good. They feel upset. They feel a little overly happy, a little too happy. They're very much floaty. They're too up in heaven. They're not down to earth. And so our perceptions are automatically assigned meaning through a mind that has become accustomed to meaning. So how are we able to transcend that? Again, by being able to connect with other people, by being able to function together in a state of observation. Now, how does one become a pure observer? I could, for example, go ahead and be in a pure observation state, but is that observation going to be consistent? With me, not really, because there will be certain forms of understandings that I'm still attempting to grasp through myself, attempting to continuously admit vulnerability. And so when you start to become more at peace with the vulnerabilities that you have within yourself, you start to become a very proficient observer. Observing a situation pertaining to two people or several people or an event, and seeing more past the vantage point that comes through observation, rather than self-judgment or self-ridicule or self-meaning, is how you're getting more of that aspect of something that moves beyond the self. When you're looking at an observer, they're not really moving into a point of self-vantage point. They're attempting to understand the entire situation, like a mediator or a third-party representative. Being able to listen to both stories of two people, being able to look at an entire group environment and just observing everything that's taken place is moving past a self-orientation and moving more into isness, falling more into the idea of a group mind. Now, this will take time for many people to get into this particular type of alignment, because what it starts with first is, again, admitting your vulnerabilities. And so right now, through much of the consensus of reality, a lot of us are very self-based. And that whether we decide to work with the self or use the self to work with others, it still comes back to the nature of the self. You're still going to have everything that represents self-processing. It's when you start to move into observations, to when you start to feel that point of stillness. It's where you start to feel that energy in everything, in your environment, in the people that exist around you. Not thinking that you do, but knowing, feeling, sensing everything that is around you as a natural point of authenticity. This is how we're playing with life that moves beyond the self. We're starting to understand people a lot more because we're not imposing self-perspective of meaning upon them. So again, this is something that will build up over time. But much to the self simply represents that orientation of perspective of how we see reality. Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? It is neither. It simply is. And that our vantage point is how we decide to see reality, how to experience reality, how to gain particular understandings of lessons, challenges, elements in regards to helping us better understand more of what we are through our vantage point, through the self. And so yes, it is most definitely a perspective, and it does have the ability to transcend and move into an allness, starting with observation, moving into stillness. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Brad Johnson of ConsciousMatrix.com. Feel free to check out ConsciousMatrix.com for videos, free stuff, products, sessions, and much more. Thank you again for watching. Take care. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.